Hello. Are you excited? Is everybody going to go home and recreate all of those programs? I wish. But I know who I want to be when I grow up, and it's a 4 version of that. So, I'm Sierra. Again, I'm from April, the Associations of Programs for Rural Independent Living. So you've heard about the centers and the programs they're running out of there. Now we're going to talk about the other 2 organizations that are a part of this, April and Nickel. And so starting with April, we are a national organization, and we offer programs for young people. But I'm going to let Mary tell you a little bit about April, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about me.
Hello. So Sierra made me come up here. My name's not up there, so I thought I got a break. But so again, I'm from April as well. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance. Sierra wanted me to just give you a brief overview of April. We are a national membership organization. We have around 270 members across the country. And the reason why April came about was that we had our brothers and sisters at Nickel, the National Council on Independent Living, and they started before us. And what we began realizing was that there are some issues that are really rural issues. And we can work alongside of them to work on the issues that affect all of us, but there are really some of these things that are very rural itself. And so we had some folks help us with that at the research and training centers, and some center directors from across the country got together, and poof, April. That's how I imagined it. There was like sparklies and poof. And so one of the main things that we talk a lot about is transportation and youth. So we have been doing youth conferences and youth work at April since it began. So for about 20, I'm like, how old is Mike Beers? For that long. For about 20 years. It's something that's a really big passion of ours. Just one more little thing I wanted to touch on is when I say rural, I know a lot of you guys in the room might have said, oh, that's not me. Well, we actually have a pretty creative definition of rural. When I say rural, we mean anywhere where you don't have access to services. And so, we might have a big city like LA, but then when you drive 20 minutes out, you still might not be able to access transportation. You still might not be able to access really good in-home personal care. And to me, that means you're rural. If you're not able to access the resources that you need from the urban area, that's how we define rural. And that was my definition. Is that good enough?
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted you guys to understand a little bit of background about April. And Mary thought she wasn't going to talk, so of course I made her. So this is a little bit about me because I want you guys to know what my background is a little bit, so you know kind of where my passion began. I started working at the Center for Independent Living in Raleigh, North Carolina. We were actually having a conversation with somebody earlier about, I didn't even know I was a person with a disability until I started working at the center, and I was like, oh wait, that's me too? Never knew that. So I started working as a youth outreach and advocacy specialist. We had long titles. And what I did was start youth programs. My director had a huge passion. She grew up in Kansas and didn't have any resources. She was a person with a disability, didn't know anybody else with a disability, and she remembers what that was like. And so when she started working with the center, that was one of her areas that she wanted to see us fulfill. And this was before WIOA. This was just, we serve people with disabilities. And that's also why I continuously say that, because the youth programs that we had were before 2014. And so during my time there, we grew several programs. We had a school program that was created with materials from across the country. Actually went into the school the first day and had this book that was made, and it was so pretty. And I gave everybody a book. Everybody had a book. And they never opened it, and they hated the first class. So from there on, I decided, okay, books don't really work. They get enough of those. And that's how actually a lot of our material got created. We got creative, and we started doing interaction and discussions and activities, and that's how a lot of our youth programs started developing. We had a youth group when I started there that was just a social group. They got cookies and soda, and they spilled it all over our floor and then left every day. And so what we did is started asking, what did they want to learn? And so that's how the youth group took over what we were doing. They told us what they wanted to learn, and then some months it was we did fun things. And then I gave them a budget and said, here's our budget. How are you going to do those fun things? And then that's when they started learning, okay, so we have to actually not just spend endless amounts of money. We have to fundraise, and we had bake sales and those types of things. So they started taking ownership of the budget and planning the schedule every year. I'm sorry. Then we had the Youth Leadership Forum. The Youth Leadership Forum started in 2008 in North Carolina, and then we took a year to do intake, and that didn't go very well because then it crashed. So we started the Youth Leadership Forum. We still have one up and running there. We also started, it's called Youth Move, which in your state, most states have a Youth Move organization. It's for youth with mental health disabilities, and it's an empowerment group. And they go and they learn how to advocate, and they have different curriculums that you can go through, and it's youth that run it. It's important collaboration. We started LGBTQ plus group. We had a healthy relationships class, and we also worked with consumers. And I list all of those things to tell you that actually a lot of those things came from when I started coming to workshops once I joined the center, and I heard the issues around people wanting access to sexuality information or healthy relationships and defining that. And so we said, oh wait, we didn't even know that was an issue in our area. How can we start that? So when I came home from the first training that I heard that, we didn't start it until maybe a year and a half later. But it was something that I put in our plan to work towards. So if you hear, I say all that because if you hear all the things that those two centers are doing, which are a lot and amazing, it doesn't mean you can't do it now. Maybe you figure out what that plan is and how that's going to look for you a year from now, 2 years from now. Okay. So I've been on the Silk, so I had that fun experience. I was an April board member. I was one of the youth seats. I was with Mike and Mary when we started the youth peer-to-peer program. I'm going to talk about that. And then now I sit on the North Carolina Education and Employment Advisory Committee. We are rewriting how students with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities get left out of education. And they are not prepared for employment. So they passed a law, and then they go, we don't know what to do with it. So we've come together as a group, and we've talked about successful ways that are out there. And then the SCAP member, that's to help with housing and to ensure that we have visibility in housing. So now, our youth programs at April. So I talked about the youth peer-to-peer mentoring program. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because it's kind of in-depth. But that has been going on for several years. We have some material that we started collecting, and that's kind of where it started, is that we had a Silk to Silk at April, where Silk Executive Director or Chair would go out and help the other Silk in another state. A CIL to CIL, which was a center director, going out to another center that needed help in a certain area, and they would work together. And then they started having conversations that young people, we want to have youth programs, but other people don't know how to do that. But there are some successful youth programs out there, and that's kind of how that got started. And we started looking at what you guys call best practices. I call practices because what's best in some places might not be best in others. So the experience, and we kind of started pulling together different resources, and that's where peer-to-peer mentoring really started. We had certain youth go out to different centers and kind of talk about how do you start a youth program, or you have a youth group and you want to grow it. What does that look like? And it has kind of grown from there. So we have a youth steering committee. Our youth steering committee is made up of young people that we came together, and Mary was there for that part of history. I know, I'm sorry, you're not old. But we had young people that said, we want to have a time for ourselves, we want to do some skill building, we want to have a conference for youth at the April conference. And so that's what they created. They planned it, and they put together a budget and fundraised and all those types of things. And so youth across the country developed a youth conference, and that's still going on. It's on Friday, and actually I gave everybody on your table, you'll see there's postcards on there of that's our youth conference, and that's run by youth. We have young people as chair, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, all those types of things, and they talk about what do we want to see? What do we want to, when young people come to our conference, what do they want to learn about? And that's where it really comes out from. So that information's on your table. We also have other formats if you need it. So if you need another accessible format, please come see me. And then this is something new that at the youth conference, every year we had a huge conference full of fun and everything, and then we do roundtable discussions. And during those roundtable discussions, we broke up and we talked about how youth are impacted in education, employment, transportation, healthcare, sexuality, you name it, there was a topic. And so we started talking about all these things that if you had that area that you wanted to focus on, and we'd come up with all these ideas, and then we'd go, all right, that was really great, and we'd leave. And we'd go, you go back to your state and do that. Well, what happens when you leave a conference? Which you're not supposed to do when you leave here, by the way. You think about it, it sounds really great, and then it just kind of gets lost, right? Your life picks right back up. And that's what we were finding with a lot of young people. It's not that they didn't want to do it, it's that they didn't have either the skills, like that's a great idea, but I have no clue where to start in my state. So out of that kind of has grown this youth advocacy committee. This committee of young people, it's made up of center staff that maybe have youth programs. We have some center staff that actually have youth come to their center to join our calls during that time. And so what they've come up with through this is we've done a survey and we figured out what youth want. What are they looking for? And through that, we've been able to see that they want to learn the basic skills of advocacy. What is the ADA and how does it protect us? We know we should know it, but we don't. And how, once we know what our rights are, how do we actually tell somebody that they're not giving us something that we deserve? So we're actually getting ready to start an advocacy training that will be taking place over the summer. It's going to be 4 meetings, and we're going to be doing web meetings, and we're going to be partnering up so youth can partner with another youth across the country. We're going to have Summit from Montana, the center there. They have a community center, if you would. It's called BASE, and they're going to be doing this self-advocacy training. So that's something if you're interested in, we're going to be putting that registration up soon. And so that's going to be an opportunity for young people and maybe even centers, center staff that are new. How do you advocate? How do you teach advocacy? How, when you're looking at your community, what skills do you want to identify that maybe you don't have or that other people don't have, and how do you educate them? So that's something that's come out of the Youth Advocacy Committee. They're guiding us right now. We just kind of got off the ground and started in January, so it's really exciting to see the possibilities of where we want to go. Once we get trained, we then want to train others. And we started talking about PTIs was actually one of the examples, the Parent Training Institutes, on how they could be more open. I like to call it more IO. So this was something that we talked about last night, was the Walmart grant. We worked with Nickel and AAPD on putting together some resources for mentorings. So there's the Disability Mentoring Day, where a young person can go out to a job that they may be interested in and mentor that job or job shadow for a day. They kind of expanded that and talked about internships and everything, and so we were kind of an advisor to that. Another piece that is kind of interesting is, how many of you have heard of Agribility? Okay, a few people, good number. So Agribility and April have actually partnered this year. Officially, we've worked together for years, but we're officially partners. And one of the things that we are wanting to do, especially being the rural organization, is to look at agriculture. So how are youth included in that? Do you think that is a viable employment opportunity for them? Can they access the farm that they grew up on and maybe want to work on like their parents? Or when they get out of school, can they, they couldn't get involved with their 4-H's, they couldn't get involved with all those other organizations that deal with agriculture. So that's one area that we're going to start working on, is trying to increase the education out there about the technology that is out there and the opportunities that the agricultural business does have for youth with disabilities. So that's an exciting new thing we're doing. And then the April Annual Youth Conference, which is the steering committee's work. So I wanted to give you a little bit more information on the youth peer-to-peer. The youth peer-to-peer is where a young person that has worked in a center and they have started youth programs at that center. We have another center that doesn't have anything, or maybe they've got one program and they're wanting to know how to expand it or what to do next. That center that doesn't have the kind of wanting to learn more, they apply, and then we hook them up with a mentor. And then that mentor then goes out to that center for 2 days to do an on-site training on whatever the topic may be. There's different topics that we consider expertise of our mentors. And those are done individually. So we look at the center and we go, okay, this is what you want to learn. This is the time track. And we put some goals with that. And that's where that mentor comes in and kind of helps with that piece and does some training. And then after the mentoring's done, and we talk about facilitation and how it may not look the same to a young person as it does to another group of individuals when you're working with a group. So how do you facilitate to young people to keep them engaged, to actually let them know that they have a voice and that they can use it? So we go over a lot of those different things. And then that collection of material I was talking about earlier, that's where we started. All of that material that we continuously keep growing, then you get all of that material, and along with that, though, you can personalize it. You can take it and make it your own. It can add to what you're already doing. And then you have that mentor's ear for another year. So after that mentoring, that person, you can call them up, have regular phone calls of, okay, so I did step 1 of our goal, but now I don't know what to do. I've got a meeting with the school system. What do I say? Okay, you've come into our center and they're bored. What do we do now? We finally got them here. So that's where that person can kind of help along that process. If any of you are familiar with the silk to silk or sill to sill, it's the same kind of process. So they go over, you kind of create goals, ideas. We go through some of the activities that, like when I worked at the center, I would run some of the activities that we did at the center and talk about how that activity you can teach in different ways and how it benefits youth and how to actually keep them engaged or how to make an accommodation for a different disability and stuff. So that's really exciting. So we have topics that include lots of different things. We've actually extended it in the last year, but recruitment, retention, IL history and philosophy, transportation, sexuality. Those are where we started. The list kind of goes on and on now. Fee for service, youth leadership forums, it just goes on and on. So we have different areas. As centers are starting to do more and more things with young people, we are hoping to kind of get that and help people along the way so we can all kind of learn from each other. The other cool thing that we've started doing out of peer-to-peers is our mentors have started doing trainings. So separate from the peer-to-peer training that they go out to a center, we've started doing calls where we have people come on and we talk about a certain subject I think the last one was on intellectual disabilities. We had a young person from California come and talk about their experience as a person with an intellectual disability and kind of what's helped them. So that was really awesome to have that person first experience, and we had 2 mentors on that call that kind of led the discussion on what that can look like in a center, and when looking at that population, what is something that may need to be modified, but how they can be included just the same. The first one we had was on intersectionality. We have one coming up in June, and that's the other postcard that you guys got. The one coming up in June is fee for service for youth programs. We have, they were talking about the WIOA program. We have that coming up as one of the topics, and it's really exciting what that center is doing. So just different things as we've identified different areas that maybe centers haven't ventured down or want to know a little bit more. That's a way to kind of learn about that. So I think that, there you go. So CILs are here one of the things somebody asked me is, can you pick my brain? I don't know how much is going to be left by the end of this week, but that's one of the things that we do. Mary takes calls all the time. I take calls all the time of, hey, so we have this center or this youth program, but I don't really know what to do with it. Or this is where we really want to get going with our center. What does that look like? And so we kind of troubleshoot with you just on a one-on-one basis. The peer mentoring I mentioned, if that's something that interests you. And then a lot of opportunity for your young people that want to get engaged on the national level. And if you want to join those calls and then bring your youth into that, there's a lot of opportunities. And that's what we're hoping to create, is not just a local opportunity, but the youth that really want to expand that to have those opportunities there. And then the top local trainings that I was just talking about. So that's a little bit about what April's doing. We've just kind of gotten started going fast in the last year, so we're excited about where that's going.